What is up, Nico Nation? Welcome back to the channel. Another Snap Count coming at you, this time 2025 playoff preview and so much more. I'm your host, Niko Chambers. This is PDunn. This is our news series where we cover all things news related NFL. PDunn, how's it going?
I'm going good, man. I could not be more excited for this one. If you want anything out of an NFL podcast, we've got head coach talks today, we've got draft stuff, we've got playoff stuff. Like you could not ask for anything more out of a podcast today. This one's going to be awesome.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Without further ado, let's just get rolling into it. We're going to go into the fire drill. Last time we were here on week 11, we showed you rankings, and here are the updated rankings based on that. Peter, and I see the Seattle Seahawks number one, and I think that we're consensus with that. Talk to me about the rest of the list, though.
It's really interesting seeing the Seahawks and Rams both at 1 and 2 for me. That's where they've stayed. I actually think there's a pretty significant gap between those two teams and, 3 and 4 with the Texans and the Niners. I think those are pretty clearly the two best teams in the league. The Texans are a team that really I would not have told you would be in this position, even at certain points like midway through the year. But the way that defense is playing, I trust Stroud to get it done in the big moments. I know that offense has enough juice to carry them over. And that's a team I could get really excited about making a run. And then, you get down towards the bottom of the list. I am a little bit lower on the Patriots than everyone else is. Everybody loves to point to that stat about, they've beaten the same amount of above 500 teams as the Giants or something crazy like that. And I think that there's some, value to that, but overall, I don't think they have the talent depth as some of these other teams. Great story. I think that they're a good team. Obviously, they're the eighth team in my power rankings. I don't think they have the juice to go far in the playoffs as some of these other teams do.
Yeah, the Seattle Seahawks team, I'll go into them. 6-2 against teams over 500. That's a big stat. They've won the most games versus playoff teams. I think that it's consensus what they've done versus the Rams and the Niners the last two out of the last 3 weeks. That's no question. And then, of course, you look down farther in the list. I have the Bears a little bit lower. I think just for me, is the defensive line going to show up? Or are they going to be able to get takeaways like they have with their corners? But I don't think that corner unit is as good as the numbers say. I feel like they're a little bit less. Same thing with this Niners team, banged up. We know that, but can the defense? We saw what the defense looked like versus Seattle. People are gonna all talk about, oh, they only gave up 13 points. Yeah, but like that was BTA if I've ever seen it, and it was bad. So really, that's my reasoning for these lower teams. And then of course you have the Eagles and the Bills who are right outside. They've dropped a little bit. I think that's pretty fair to say. But it's Jacksonville Jaguars team, P Dunn. Got to talk about them. We're not totally as high as on them as some people are, but they're still here in the top 10. What can you talk about them? They've made a huge jump the last 7 weeks.
Yeah, you can't really talk about them without talking about Trevor and the way he's been playing. This is a guy coming out of college that was looked at as not just a generational talent, but truly a once every 10, 15 year type of quarterback talent that you see. And truthfully, the first few years he had not lived up to that. And it's finally looking like this is the Trevor we expected. And this is the Trevor that, he wants to play as. He's been playing fantastic, and this team goes where he goes. They still have a lot left in the tank to get out of some of these weapons. Brian Thomas has not seen the production he's wanted to, but the offense has not skipped a beat. The defense is playing well. Obviously, you've got guys all over that defense at every level, and I think that, Liam Cohen has got these guys dialed, and I think they not only are good this year, but they're going to be good for the next few years.
It's going to be really cool to see. Really good matchup there with the Bills, the 3 versus 6 seed coming up this weekend. That'll move us in to the Western Juggernaut. It's the best division in football by far. It's got three teams with over 12 wins. The Seahawks, Rams, and 49ers. They headline the top records in the NFC in general because the next teams are the Bears and the Eagles, who have 11 wins. What can you talk about this division, Peta, and how has it been to watch them, and what do you see out of them in this playoffs?
It's pretty incredible looking at how dominant they have been outside of conference. When these teams play each other, someone has to lose, right? And so a lot of these losses come from each other. And then you look at like the way that they play against teams that aren't one of these three teams, and it's incredible. Like these truly are, three, you saw in our power rankings how high we are on both the Rams and the Seahawks, but also the Niners. Like, this is incredible, especially what Shanahan's been able to do without Fred Warner and Bosa in that lineup this year. It's been and Ayuk too. Who knows what's going to happen with his future? Like, it's incredible seeing what he's been able to do. I think he's the coach of the year. It's easily the best division in football, and I think it's one of the best divisions we've seen in a long time, truly.
I'd have to agree with you. You see the really the betting numbers here and the odds and the lines. Is it safe to say that the NFC West champ will be from the NFC West? And if you had to pick one of these, who are you picking?
I think so. I think honestly, I would be shocked if it's not the Hawks or the Rams. But the Niners are up there too, obviously with pretty decent odds. And so I would be very surprised if the winner is not from this division. I agree with you. I don't think the Bears are going to make this run. I think they're still a couple years away from truly, maybe a year away from being a truly Super Bowl contender. Um, but I mean, the Seahawks and the Rams, like I think those are your two Super Bowl teams, or the two teams that are most likely to win the Super Bowl. And then we'll see who comes out of the AFC. But this is incredible what these three teams are doing for sure.
It really is. And let's talk about those Bears as we move into Field General here, where we got four teams left here in the NFC, which really their entire playoff run is going to depend on their quarterback play. And I think that's really interesting to say. You have the Eagles and the Bears hosting playoff games. PDunn, you're the Bears fan. Talk to me about the Bears season. What can they do to even make a run here? But you still think that they're a few years away.
I do. I think it's been really interesting because, you watch this team at the beginning of the year and they started a little slow and then they kind of just got their footing and it hasn't really been pretty or dominant or explosive or anything of that nature, but they've won and they've continued to win and they win very often. And so it's something that you think, this is year one of Ben Johnson and it's year two of Caleb Williams and year one in this offense. And so, continue to surround him with talent. You get a healthy Rome Odunze back. This defense has some time to regroup and recollect itself. And then, maybe next year you reload. But I mean, they've got a chance if they keep winning. I've doubted them before. I'm a Bears fan, but I didn't think they were going to do this year. And so I doubted them before. Maybe they'll prove me wrong again. I'd love to see them make a run and maybe win a couple games here. But I think the Eagles are definitely the team to watch out for. This seems like the experience of what they have on that team, feels like, I mean, at least over the last few years, there's plenty been times where like, man, the Eagles kind of stumbled into the playoffs and then they go on a run. And so it'll be interesting to see whether they can turn that on and flip that switch for the playoffs and Jalen Hurts can, kind of surmount some of these struggles he's had throughout the year and finish the year strong.
Nobody's talking about him, and that's kind of scary for a defending Super Bowl champion. Nobody's talking about him. Everybody's sleeping on them. But the matter of the fact is, they were gross last year.
Yeah.
They killed everybody, and they pretty much had the exact same team thrown back at here with just a little bit weaker of an offensive line. So that's going to really be kind of the game plan for them. They got to figure out that offensive line, how to neutralize, how to have Jalen Hurts really do his thing in the running game, but also the passing game. And then obviously we'll move down to the Panthers and the Packers. You got two teams who kind of stumbled in. Believe it or not, Green Bay kind of like clinched that 17 weeks early. Carolina, of course, the craziest fashion where they lose the deciding game basically for this division, but they win because of a tiebreaker with the Falcons, who beat the other terrible team in their division. How do you make sense of all this?
I don't know, man. I think if you're the Panthers, you just kind of, I mean, they could not be more happier about this, but I think they definitely lucked their way into this, and they're definitely the weakest team in this conference in the playoffs right now. And so I think that the Packers, you look at the Packers and you're like, okay, is this team playing the best that their best football right now? They're not, and they simply haven't been since the beginning of the season. But there is a real chance that this team gets hot. There's a lot of talent on that offense. Losing Micah sucks, but there's still some talent on that defense too. And this is a talented roster that could heat up at the right time. That's a team that I don't want to play. I would rather not play the Packers, And so anytime you have that that's a team that you could see make a run. The Panthers, unfortunately for them, it's a great story. I love seeing Bryce play well. It's been good for him to kind of continue this trajectory he's been on this season, but I'm not scared to play the Panthers if I'm, one of these top seeds in the NFC.
I think this Packers team got a really good matchup with the Bears. You remember what happened last time they played. And you also just remember from 2 years ago, they went to go play Dallas on the road as a very low seed, and they absolutely destroyed them. It was a big shock.
Yeah.
But this is a really good matchup for this Packers team. I know that they're decimated by injuries, but I would look out for them, and I would look out for them making it to the next round as a 7 seed. That'll move us on to the big storyline of this week. The biggest of this week so far, Black Monday has happened, and we have four coaching firings. PDunn, you see him on the screen. You got Kevin Stefanski, Pete Carroll, Jonathan Gannon, and Raheem Morris. Out of all these guys, who is the most shocking firing, and who do you think has the best and most attractive offering as a head coach?
I mean, I think it's Stefanski for both of those reasons. I think we'll get into Harbaugh in a little bit, but if you would have asked me who I think deserves to stay more, I think I would say Stefanski deserves to stay with the Browns more than Harbaugh deserves to stay with the Ravens. And Harbaugh's a fantastic coach and one of the best in the league. I think Stefanski has really done a lot with very little. This is a former coach of the year, and he's had very little to work with, got rid of Baker, and hasn't had anything at the quarterback position since. That is, Deshaun Watson has been a tragedy for that program, and you kind of just let him deal with it and didn't really give him a lot to work with. And that's really tough on a coach. There's not a lot of coaches that are going to succeed with that in the NFL. And so I think he's going to get another job. I would love to see him with the Giants. I think that would be an awesome fit for him. There is rumors that he's been talking to them. I know even today he was talking with the Raiders, and I hope he doesn't go to the Raiders. But I think he's going to go somewhere. I think he's going to succeed. And he's the only coach on this list that I feel very confident about that, no matter where they go next, not only will they get another head coaching job, but they're going to be very successful in their next head coaching job.
I think I'll talk about my guy, Pete Carroll. It should have been a one and done, unfortunately, and I think that his is probably one of his last stops here. A great coaching career if it is. Congrats to him. I think he'll probably step into an advising role, something similar to what Vrabel did last year. Maybe take a year off, try to figure out where he's going. But I think that in the NFL, his coaching days are over. But I look at these two guys and these next two guys, and I really like Jonathan Gannon to do something similar to what a Mike McDonald did, where he was booted off of. It's a little bit different because Mike McDonald wasn't a head coach previously, but I think that he's going to revert back to the coordinator role and he's going to do so good. He's going to get a coaching job again in the NFL. I don't think Raheem Morris is that. And I am actually a little surprised. I'm a little surprised that they got rid of Raheem Morris, especially after this win streak that they went on. I felt like he's a locker room guy. They showed fight. What I'm shocked by is that they fired the GM. I don't
Yeah.
agree with that for the Falcons. He's done an amazing job at putting players on the field. You look at the draft picks, you look at Bijan, you look at Pitts, you look at Drake London, you look at JPJ, you look at
Yeah.
Jalen Walker. The only miss would be the Michael Penix pick. And yes, that's a very big miss if it is so a miss, but his career is not over. He's still about to go into what would be his third year. I just don't agree with that. I think this Falcons coaching opening is really attractive for the right coach, and I think it'll be really cool to see who goes there. That'll take us in to the biggest one of all. John Harbaugh, relieved of his duties after 18 years with Baltimore, an 180 and 113 career record. He was 13 and 11 in the postseason. You see the 12 playoff appearances, 6 AFC North titles, and the Super Bowl in 2013. Pete, on initial thoughts.
I mean, it's terrible, man. Like you hate to see something like this happen. It feels like I mean, like a like a married couple you love breaking up and getting divorced. Like this is terrible. But, it's one of those things like I understand where the Ravens are coming from. This is a team that is unfortunately underperformed these last few seasons and lost in some times where they shouldn't have lost. I think when they lost to the Chiefs in that AFC Championship, there was a lot of people that were confused on that one. And there's some times that, especially this year, like, yes, you can point to the injuries. This team was decimated by injuries, but at the end of the day, this is a very talented roster that should have made the playoffs. Um, and so, I mean, I think that from the Ravens side of things, there is no way where they're looking at this and saying he's not good enough to do this. We need a new head coach that's better than him. I think this is just purely a change of scenery. I think the Ravens think that they have some of the highest strength in the coaching hire market and they can attract some of the top candidates. I think they deservedly so. They've got a fantastic organization that is very desirable. You know, if you compare this to the Raiders job or the Cardinals job or the Giants job, like this is a grand slam for any head coach who wants to go work here, and it's not open that often. It's very similar to the Steelers job. Like this is not a job that is open very often. And so this is they're going to have a lot of power to get the guy they want in-house. And so I think that it's one of those things that there's a reason this isn't a firing. They worded this very clearly, and it's not, there's no bad blood here. It's going to be really interesting to see what Harbaugh does, where he ends up. If he goes somewhere this year, like you said with Vrabel, takes a year off, comes back, gets the job he really wants next year. But, you know, you hate to see it. You hate to see stuff like this happen.
I think saw a funny stat the other day. Nine teams have called about John Harbaugh. There's only seven openings, including the Ravens. So that means people are considering firing their head coach to get this guy in the building. This guy knows what he's doing. And I think
Yeah.
that a team to really look at, I'm looking at the New York Giants. It's a big market team. You see the vision. You see the vision. Clearly, there was still a disconnect, but when you have the young core, you have Dart, you have the quarterback, you have Neighbors, you have Scat, which we don't know how great Scat will be after this big injury and stuff, but like you got the young pieces. You're starting to get pieces on defense. I would really look for that team, especially Peter. And is there really quick? Is there a team that you're looking for Harbaugh?
That's the first team that came into my head. You know, there is obviously the Falcons would be the second most intriguing option for me. Um, but it's always interesting when, you know, a team fires somebody and he immediately becomes the top, you know, option on the board. Like if Harbaugh was working for the Giants and the Ravens had an opening, they would hire Harbaugh. Like he would be their top guy. So it's really interesting to see what this happens. It's going to be very fascinating to see where he ends up for sure.
It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll move in to this AFC side of the playoffs, and it's all about defense. Texans and Broncos, top three defenses, two of them of the top three coming into this thing. And then you got the Bills and Chargers with some really sleeper defenses. PDunn, talk to me about what you see from these really top teams.
I mean, you know, these are some of the best defenses we've seen over the last few years in the NFL. These are, you know, dominant defenses, especially the Texans. This is one of the best defenses we've seen in the last decade. Doing what they're doing with the talent they're doing, is truly incredible. You know, the offense isn't really asked to do a lot, which is good because they haven't, but they don't need to because they're 12-5 and the defense is fantastic. So it's going to be interesting to see whether, you know, the offense can hit that next notch. And if they do, then I really think that this is a team that could go all the way. Like this defense is legit that good to just carry them that far. And the Broncos, you can say something similar. I mean, that defense has talent everywhere at every level of that defense. It's fantastic. And so Bo Nix has been playing well. You know, Sean Payton has had that team dialed in. And so it's going to be really interesting to see which one of those offenses can get hot at the right time. And one of those teams will definitely make a run.
I think it's the Texans who can get hot at the right time, honestly. I trust the Texans offense more than I do with the Broncos offense in a sense. I feel like they're very young in Denver and, you know, a little bit more uncertainty with their receivers and stuff. I like Nico Collins and I like CJ Stroud a little bit more than what I see in Denver. And then of course we got to talk about the Bills. First time in 5 years they will not face Mahomes, Jackson, or Burrow in the playoffs. They got the kryptonite out the way. This is their time to make a run. There's been more parity in the NFL than ever before, but there's one team that stayed consistent throughout that 5 year run, and it's the Bills out of everybody. I'm expecting them to finally make this run. That matchup, 6 versus 3 versus the Jaguars, I mentioned it earlier. That's going to be a really interesting matchup. But I think if they can get past them, I think they're going deep. I think they can really do something. It won't run through Highmark for the last time. You got to remember that. It won't do that. They're done at playing at Highmark unless somehow the Chargers make a run, as we see here. And, you know, I think it'll be really cool to see. We'll move on here to the underdog storyline. And the craziest thing out of this graphic is we were sitting here not even a year ago. The Pats had the fourth pick and the Jags had the second pick. The Jags took Travis Hunter and the Pats took Will Campbell. And now, after 4 and 13 seasons, they have new head coaches and they both sit with over 13 wins. How do you make sense of that, PDunn?
I mean, this New England thing, everyone knew this was a Grand Slam hire for with Vrabel. That was an awesome fit. It was going to work out. No one thought it was going to work out this fast. This roster just simply did not have the capability to go 14-3 this year, and they did anyway. Like a lot of that's because Drake May's playing at MVP level. He's playing out of his mind this year, and he's been fantastic. Trevor Lawrence has been fantastic, and that's what we talked about earlier. Like these quarterbacks have so much to do with these teams' success, but it's a team game, man. And there's a lot of like these talent rosters were not, um, what we thought were equipped to have records like this, and here they are. Like it's incredible seeing what these, coaches can do first year, these quarterbacks can do. Their both of their breakout seasons for both of these quarterbacks. And both of them being in positions that neither of us thought they would be in the preseason.
Drake May having a killer year. Is he your MVP?
No, Stafford's my MVP. I think
Fair
when you
enough.
look I think when you look at the year, I know he hasn't finished as strong as he was during the start of the year, but when you look at the year, like the full 17 game season, like you got to give it to him. He's been out of his mind this season.
I agree. I agree. And then we'll talk about the former four-time MVP, Aaron Rodgers leading the Steelers team a little bit over mediocrity. Again, they're 10-7 this time. They won the AFC North this time. They haven't won a playoff game since 2016, and Mike Tomlin extends that non-losing streak to 19 years. Is there hope for this Steelers team in the playoffs versus the Texans first round and even maybe beyond?
Absolutely not. I would pick the Panthers down to beat this team. There's no way. Like, and I've said that all year. Like, I didn't think they were going to beat the Ravens. I thought there was no shot they were going to beat the Ravens, and they did. And so, with God's help, they beat the Ravens. Like they
I
needed
saw
him to
that.
come through. But it's I would be shocked if the Steelers win a playoff game. Shocked.
Is Rodgers going to run it back next year?
I don't know. He's got a wellness retreat, man. He's got to go hide himself in the forest. We'll see what he
That's
says.
right.
You
That's
can't
right.
guess what
That's
goes on in
right.
there. You can't predict it.
It's always something with Aaron. We'll move in to the mock draft, and we have the final order. This is our first mock draft of the season. PDunn, talk to me about what you have here. We have the order because the season ended. What do you
Yep.
see here?
I mean, this is so fun. This is when we get into the really, really fun stuff. This is our jam right here. And so you look at Mendoza and Dante Moore, those are the headliners of this class. Simply, those are the top two quarterbacks. Ty Simpson has declared he will be a Jackson Dart type of late first round pick in my projection right now. I don't think he's going to be maybe he does, but I don't think he'll be a mid to early first round pick. So you got these two guys at the front. Personally, Dante Moore is my quarterback one right now, but very consensus is Mendoza to the Raiders. There's a lot of steam. If the draft was today, the Raiders would choose Mendoza. If the draft was, in late April, the Raiders I think are going to be choosing Mendoza. And so that leads up to two with the Jets. And there's an interesting conversation here because the Jets obviously have all of those first round picks next year. Do you trade down, get a new player, get more picks? Do you take the best player available and try and get a quarterback in next year's draft, which is considerably better than this year's draft is where it's looking right now. And ultimately, I think they're going to settle on a quarterback. You have all of those draft picks next year. And this is a good situation for Dante Moore. He's walking in with the best young tackle duo in the league. You've got a wide receiver one in Garrett Wilson, and you've got some pieces around him that make it a really favorable situation for a young quarterback to walk in if they can get the right staff behind him, and a veteran in there to help him out. I think that that's where they're ultimately going to end up. And then you get into the Cardinals at three. This is when things get really tricky. This draft, we've had a conversation about this draft before, with the lack of blue chip players in this draft, the really top end talent. Um, or sorry, that there is the generational blue chip talent, and then it's a huge drop off after that. And this is where you start to see that. You have Spencer Fano, a guy that is projected as a tackle, probably going to maybe play guard at the next level. And the Cardinals ultimately, they've got good edge rushers. They're not going to take off Arvell Reese here. The next best player available is Jeremiah Love. You're not going to take a running back at three. And then I don't think they're going to take a receiver here either. And so I think they're going to bolster that offensive line. Fano can play right tackle for them. You've got Paris Johnson at left. That's a pretty good tackle duo for whoever is going to replace Kyler Murray next year. And then you get into Arvell Reese, is simply best player available. The Titans need it. They are a really bad roster right now. This is another trade down spot if someone is coming willing to come up to trade out for somebody. And then these next two picks, you've got some receivers going. Carnell Tate is simply the highest floor out of all the receivers while still having a very high ceiling. He's a fantastic route runner, very smooth in and out of his breaks, and a great frame. I mean, not to helmet comp, but he reminds me a lot of Marvin Harrison Jr. And Jordan Tyson, a guy that has all talent in the world, but has been injured every single year of his college career, and cannot stay healthy for the life of him. When he's healthy, he's amazing. If any other skill level was this injured all the time, he would not be going at six. Jordan Tyson is just simply that good that someone's going to take a chance on him. Caleb Downs at seven. That Commanders defense is terrible. It's one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Caleb Downs is the best player in this draft, par for par, not talking about position. And so you get him in there, you make that defense so much better just by him at the back end. He will almost play a linebacker role with the way that he talks about the defense and when he coaches other players up. Ruben Bain at eight, I think this is just a good pick. They need some more players on that defense. They need some more guys on that edge rusher rotation. You're going to hear about the arm length for Ruben Bain. I'm not too worried about it yet unless it comes in shorter than we expect at the combine. He's definitely got T-Rex arms, but he's still a monster. And then Jeremiah Love at nine. This is terrifying for the NFL, thinking about the Chiefs getting him. But if he's here, I don't think there's a tackle they're willing to take here, and that's the other main need they need. And then Francis Mauigoa at 10 for the Bengals. They don't have a choice. I have a late first round grade on him. The Bengals literally could have the first overall pick, and if they were forced to take they would choose an offensive tackle. They do not have a choice. They have to take offensive line. They have to protect Joe Burrow. They have to spend this offseason. They do not have another choice to go anywhere else, or Burrow's going to get really frustrated and maybe continue to not be healthy throughout the next few years. You got to protect your quarterback.
So what is the deal with Joe Burrow? Because in my mind, I love the crazy mocks. I love the trades. I see a team at number two with a ton of draft capital
Mm.
who needs a quarterback, and I see a team at number 10 who is a lot farther away than we thought at the beginning of the season. We thought they would win the division. So what is the deal with Burrow and this like saga that's going on, and could he potentially be a Jet?
I mean, that would be incredible. They're the only team that has the capital to make that trade because of how expensive it is trading for a top five quarterback in the league, pretty consensusly when he's healthy. And so I don't know. That would be incredible if the Jets could do that. Everyone knows the Jets can't develop a quarterback. They've struggled with that. And so the best way to fix that is just get a guy that doesn't need to develop. You get Burrow in there, he's automatically one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I don't know. If I was the Jets, I'd do that. I don't know if the Bengals are willing to do that.
It's
They should
definitely going
though.
to be
They should.
interesting. They should. So why should the Bengals do it?
I think that they need to. I don't think that this is going to continue to work. Going back to the Ravens with Harbaugh, like there was a locker room problem. A lot of the reports that we're hearing, especially on that offensive side of the ball, if it's happening in the Ravens organization, like with Harbaugh, like there's no way that the Bengals are going to continue to do this with all of those personalities in that room. With like and Burrow at the head of it, he doesn't want to play there. Like you've heard some of these interviews, like he's really struggling, and so. I don't, that's a ticking time bomb for me. You're not going to get the best out of that. That's kind of, you're throwing paint at a wall and just expecting something beautiful to come out of it. That's probably not going to happen. And so I think that they need to move on. I think that, is it, you know, logical cap wise? I'm not sure, but I definitely think that they should.
I think they should have moved on from Zach Taylor a long time ago,
Oh, yeah.
especially during this cycle. But they're running it out. It's one of the worst front offices I've ever seen. We talked about it with Shamar Stewart's situation. It's terrible. They need to figure that out, but I doubt they will. He'll probably rot there forever. I'll talk about my ideas here. I really like Jeremiah Love, like you said, very scary if they can figure that out. I mean, you're running with Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. part of the offense and part of the issues was that there's just no explosiveness in the run game. You know, Patrick Mahomes loves to roll out. You can't even do anything with that. He goes there, watch out NFL, and watch out because, like we said, like we always talk about, we're talking about teams that are great right now, like the Jags and the Seahawks and the Patriots, and all those teams played the third place and the fourth place teams in the schedule. And that's what the Chiefs are going to get next year with all the third place teams in that schedule. That's going to be terrifying. I also, another really great pick for me, I think the Arvell Reese is a slam dunk going to Tennessee. I feel like that's exactly what he can do for them is perfect. And I really like Carnell Tate going to the Giants. It's a really nifty thing that could really shake up. Is there anybody who you can see jumping into this top 10 who is far from it or is going to show in the combine why they deserve it?
I think Peter Woods has the ability to start as early as 4. I think that he's the Clemson defensive tackle, a guy that is a fantastic athlete, and he's interesting because we've had this conversation before. Tell me if you've heard this before, but he's very smooth, and he's a fantastic to watch on film, and he gets a lot of pressure on the quarterback, and he doesn't get sacks a lot. And so that didn't work out well last year when the Bengals took a guy like that. But I think when you're a defensive tackle, sacks are more fleeting when you're coming from the interior, and pressure, when you can get pressure on the from the interior and a push on the interior, and you can force that quarterback out of the pocket, that matters a lot more than when you're on the edge and all the quarterback has to do is just simply step up. It's a lot easier to get away from an edge rusher than it is a defensive tackle. And so I think a lot of teams will prioritize that pressure that Peter Woods can bring. If he has a good combine, his stock will definitely skyrocket.
Well, it's draft season, baby, and we're gonna take you through all the coverage this year as we transition to a podcast. That's the new thing on the checklist. So be on the lookout for that as we get closer here past February, probably once the Super Bowl ends, we're all in. And we'll move in to the final graphic for today, our playoff predictions. We're going to go through the entire thing live on air. We're going to start with PDunn. We're going to start in the AFC. So PDunn, talk to me about your matchups and go through the entire playoffs for the AFC, and then we'll swap to NFC and we'll talk Super Bowl.
Yep. So this one seems pretty easy for me at the top. I made my comment about the Steelers. I would pick the Panthers by 2 touchdowns if they played them today. So I will take the Texans, who I think have the capability to go all the way for my first pick. And then we have the Bills and the Jags. This one's fun. This one's a lot of fun. I'm really excited to see this matchup. I'm gonna take the Bills. I think that the Bills are gonna be very motivated to take advantage of this opportunity this season. It's not every year you don't have the other 3 best quarterbacks in the league not going against you, and they've struggled with that for a long time, and they're gonna take advantage of it this year. I have the Chargers beating the Patriots in the next round. I think that Herbert will bring this team, especially Harbaugh will bring this team ready to play. Vrabel, great story. They're going to be good for a long time. Everybody get ready because we got another Patriots run going. But I don't think this is the year for them. I'm trusting Chargers and I'm trusting Harbaugh. I have the Chargers Broncos. I'm going to take the Broncos then. I think the Broncos are good. And then we've got Bills Texans. And then I am going to take the Texans over the Bills. So
Wow. Okay.
that leads us back with Texans and the Broncos. And then I am going to take the Texans to go to the Super Bowl for the AFC. And then moving over to the NFC for the first round games, I'm having the Rams over the Panthers. Pretty easy pick there. Not really worried about that one. Sets up an insane second round matchup. Got Niners and the Eagles. I'm going to take the Niners. I think that that team is playing really good football right now. And I think that unfortunately, the Eagles, I don't think that switch is going to be able to flip immediately. Usually, you would like to see some sort of accelerated towards the end of the season, and they haven't. And then, unfortunately, I think that the Packers are going to beat the Bears. It took a miracle to beat them last time, and um, I just I think that the Packers are going to be able to do this. I don't necessarily trust that the Bears have a playoff run in them right now. And so Seahawks Packers, I'm taking the Seahawks. Again, best team in the league. I think the best team in
Yep.
the league. And then we've got Rams Niners. And then I think that the Rams are going to win that one. Like I said, second best team in the league. I think the Seahawks are going to beat the Rams. in that round, and that's going to leave us with a Texans Seahawks Super Bowl. And I think, you know what? I'm not going to jinx you. I'm going to go Texans because
Wow.
if the Seahawks won, you would blame it on, and if I picked them and they lost, you blame it on me. So I'm going to go Texans. I think the Texans are going to get it done. I think they're playing the best football at the right time. This is one of the best defenses we've seen in a long time. And I think that they're going to, I think they absolutely have the capability to go all the way.
Unbelievable. I'll go into mine here. I think it's clear, very top left. The Texans are going to kill the Steelers. I do think the Bills get it done over the Jags. That's going to be the closest game of this entire weekend. And then I do think the Pats end up edging this Chargers team just ever so slightly. That'll take us in to what will be the Bills versus the Broncos and the Texans versus the Patriots. I'll start with the Bills Broncos. I think it's going to be the Broncos. I think this Bills team, it's really hard to play on the road, and they're going to be traveling a lot. And I just think Josh Allen just doesn't get it done. Broncos advance. And then Texans Patriots, it's going to be the Texans. I think that the Texans are also going to find their way into the AFC Championship after beating the Patriots. You're going to have an AFC Championship with the Broncos and the Texans. And I think the Broncos get it done. I think the Broncos return to the Super Bowl and they will represent the AFC. That'll switch us over to this NFC side where I'll start with this Rams Panthers team. You know, there's this tiny chance that this Panthers team can do something and do something similar to what they did early in the year, which was beat them. I don't see it happening. I think the Rams win by 2 touchdowns. Eagles versus the Niners. I would love to see the Niners win this game so we can beat them later, but it's going to be the Eagles, in my opinion. I just think that defense is just not good enough. And then Packers Bears, I'm going to have to agree with you, PDunn. I'm sorry, Bears. This Packers team, bro, as long as they're in it, they're always in it. So don't sleep on them. That'll move the Packers, Seahawks, Seattle moves on. I don't got to say anything about that. Rams versus the Eagles. I'm going the Rams to make it. NFC Championship is going to be Seattle versus the Rams. You know who I'm picking. It's going to be the Seattle Seahawks to represent the boys in the Super Bowl. And then it's going to be the Broncos versus Seahawks, 1 versus 1 seed. I got to take my AirPods off for this.
Hey, come
Right
on.
here, Seattle Seahawks, your Super Bowl champions. Let's go, boys.
Let's go.
That'll be it for us. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for draft coverage, and we will see you next time.